Hello, Mary ma'am. It's so nice to have you on our platform for the podcast on Heroes of Inclusion. And I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to have this chat with you. So, why don't you give us a little introduction in your own words?
It's actually a blessing to be here because basically I'm an English teacher by profession with almost 3 decades and more of teaching, active teaching. And currently I'm working at 21K School as an ESOL facilitator. Basically from Delhi. I prefer to be called a Delhiite. Currently settled in Cochin, that's God's own country. I love writing. I have written 4 books which are there on the public portal. And for me, teaching is still will always be a passion.
Mary ma'am, you have missed out one large segment of your introduction, and that is something that I would love to add. I think Mary ma'am here has been the reason I call her Mary ma'am is because she is my daughter, youngest daughter, Kia's English teacher. And she's, the only one, source of inspiration who has been behind Kia becoming an author. So that is the part that Mary ma'am missed out, which I, I kind of hope I did justice by adding here. And I think in general, Mary ma'am has, been somebody from the day one that I know you, Mary ma'am. You've been somebody who has constantly nudged Kia, right, in different directions. I don't think you ever looked at her or recognized her as somebody who was physically challenged. I think you've always been someone who has been, hunting her abilities inside her and honing them, and for that, I will, as a parent, remain always grateful to you. So having said that, Mary ma'am, the whole, aura on this series is about inclusion, right? And I think I think your, personality, the way you have approached your life, your attitude towards your children makes you a very, very strong and inclusive person in your, approach. These are terminologies, right? All of us use a lot of terminologies. This is just one of them. If I had to ask you, what does the term inclusion mean to you?
I realized what inclusion is, and was when I went to Kuwait. So this was the first time Indian teachers were recruited directly by the Ministry of Education to teach English. So we were a group of elite group of 22 teachers recruited across the country, and 3 of us from Delhi. So when we landed the first time to the Middle East, that's Kuwait, we all have a misconception. Middle East is fantastic. You dig a hole, oil wells will gush out. People are loaded in gold there. Money is easy. No, it was not that. So when we reached there, the Arab nationality were only used to domestic helpers, Indians as domestic helpers. So we were the first batch of teachers teaching Arabs English. So the first time when we landed at the airport, people looked at us like, okay, another group of domestic helpers are coming, not realizing that we were all postgraduates with a vibe. And the first person I met at the airport was the Minister of Education himself, who greeted us warmly. The others who were looking at us were looking down at us right from, everywhere. But this gentleman, he came in his white, Arab dishdasha, and he gave us a warm welcome to Kuwait. That was the first time I felt, I'm included in that community. So inclusivity for me is from my own example. When I went to teach Arab students, it was not easy. But they, after a couple of meetings with them, they actually felt so comfortable with me. They shared with me everything. So inclusivity for me is a person, I feel we are all part of one, big world. There is only one creator, irrespective of whichever religion anyone is following. We are all, fellow brothers and sisters. We have to take care of each other and include each other. Every child, every human being has a potential. Treat them with respect. Inclusivity for me as a teacher means, I as a teacher should make all students feel respected, feel valued, and support them. Regardless of what their background is, what their ability is, or what their identity is. And the first person who included me at 21K from the student community had been Kia. So there is a connection with her, I didn't do anything for her. She included me in the class. So when I entered the class, this I would love to share with the audience, 21K is an or online school, and I had not much heard about this school. So when I get a call from HR, we want you to join the school, and I was appointed. My first class was Kia's class. And when I joined, I was actually nervous. After 3 decades, I was nervous. How is it going to be? Because I'm going to virtually meet students. The first person who welcomed me was little Kia. And I say little to my children also because, there was this petite little child sitting and, good morning, ma'am, and then we started talking. So she included me in her group. She included me in 21K.
Absolutely. I think, Mary ma'am, you've said it out, said it all when it comes to understanding this, word as an emotion, right? Looking at it a little objectively, because I think we all need to understand where the gaps are, and there are gaps. And I think that is where the problem really lies. Because on one hand, I personally feel that there is so much of empathy in all of us, that we feel so much like each other, right? About various aspects of life. And on the other hand, our country has evolved over the various decades of having gained its independence, and has inculcated systems which are not so empathetic, right? Which are not so inclusive. And it beats me. Why is it that we are not able to change our own systems as quickly as they need to be? On one hand, because we are progressing as a nation quite fast in so many sectors. Where do you think we as a nation are today, and what do you think we should be doing? I know it's a big question, but I'm only thinking that somebody who's in the education system might have maybe a better worldview or nation view than a parent.
Basically, it begins at home. I feel it begins in the family. So parents are the best educators. So I feel the mindset should change within the family. Let's not expect the school to do everything. So parents should treat your children, treat everyone, irrespective of gender. And currently in this particular scenario, I feel gender, is very important that, boys or girls, each one has their own identity. So parents should take care upon themselves. If somebody is not right, the first blame should be given to the family. That's the upbringing. Education plays an integral part, but the values that we get at home, the bonds that are formed within the family plays an important role in the long run. So I feel, all of us have an important role, and the mindset of the nation has to change. If the mindset, the attitude does not change, we cannot change anything. We can talk lots, but we can give a lot of speeches about it. A lot of action can be taken. Those are big words spoken, but where is the practical application of that?
Absolutely.
So the mindset, I feel the mindset has to change. Definitely.
I keep telling this to, I think, a lot of people, that somewhere in the whole social fabric, right, that we all live in, family is still the most sacrosanct unit, right? And that is where I think every individual's foundation begins. And unfortunately, in our country, I think the family unit is becoming very, very nuclear, and the time that is required to be spent nurturing the children is reducing. And if you ask me, maybe that could be one of the root causes, right? Where in these very, very primitive and very, very vital years of a young mind, right, young and growing mind, there are lots of these values and systems that need to be ingrained out there, is not getting done. And maybe that is where individually all of us can maybe start taking action right away. Can we start doing whatever little that we can within the four walls of our homes, right? And I know we can't change the size of the families anymore, because there is a lot at play, but how do we spend quality time? What does parental education mean, right, vis-a-vis what organizational education mean? And I'm sure parents, if there are any listening, whether they are parents of specially able children or just regular children, I think one is, if we can stop differentiating between people at our own level, you know, and truly pass on values relating to, how to have compassion in your being, and how to, meet and greet people irrespective of their backgrounds. I think some of the basics from there are enough. Now, my next question, Mary ma'am, you've been outside India for, a good number of years, and now you're back. What are the changes that you're seeing before and after?
I didn't want that conception of being a teacher, that, teachers are prim and proper and very straight faced, don't smile at anyone. I wanted to get a change, and I got a change definitely right from day one that I stepped into Presentation Convent as a postgraduate teacher. 12 years after teaching there, I went to Kuwait. 19 years I spent there. Now, I went to Kuwait because, we were in a financial situation, so I had to move to Kuwait. And fortunately, I was selected. Life was not easy in Kuwait. Like everyone thinks, it was a bed of roses for both of us working. My 2 children were in Kerala with my sister-in-law for 2 years. My younger one was only 3 years old. So the moment, we were slightly stable, we took our children. A lot of people told us, don't take, let them be in India. You can earn money. But earning money was not the priority there. We wanted to be as a family. And 19 years, I saw myself literally improve my teaching credibility. Even though I was a full-time teacher, but as a family, we spent quality time with whatever means, whatever finances we had. Now, I was awarded, I was one of the 2 Indians who was awarded by the Minister of Kuwait, where Arabs were getting. So I would not have been able to do it if I was in India, definitely, in Delhi. I would have been the same strict teacher wearing a sari and going, etc., etc. But there, when I went there, it got a total change in me because, I started educating myself more.
What I'm hearing is that given the right environment, anybody can flourish, right? When you just need to have an encouraging self developing sort of an environment in which you as an individual, as a personality, you flourish. I think that is the net takeaway from whatever you're telling me, which somewhere I feel, if I have to kind of draw a parallel between just the environment in our society, the environment as a country, today, I think our country also has moved ahead, and it is being able to nurture young minds. Entrepreneurship is being promoted. I think a lot of good stuff is happening, because of which maybe in various areas and various sectors of our industries, in our fields, we see a lot of progress. But why are we not being able to break the barriers? That's my only question to every single guest who's come on the platform. Why is it that we are finding it so hard to break barriers amongst us? And when I say this as a phrase, it applies to so many areas again. So I'm just not talking about gender barriers. I'm talking about inequality between various segments of our society when it comes to, yet even today, if you see, there is a very clear urban and rural divide. And that divide exists in people living with abilities vis-a-vis people who are challenged, be it physically, be it those who are neurodiverse. Somewhere I feel these are the barriers or the silos which are growing. If you're asking me honestly, I think we are growing them by legalizing these these silos, and calling them or calling this whole sector of people as people with disabilities, rather than having a very inclusive society which is equal for all, gives equal rights for education, equal rights of employment, equal rights of healthcare. So anyway, that's my cry, and I'm only thinking that why are we not being able to diffuse these barriers? Why are we not being able to break the barriers? Because only when we do that, I think individually every single person is going to flourish, just the way that you're talking about yourself. Having got the right environment, you were able to succeed, and you could become a thinking mind. What's the best thing for me to do? How do I grow in life?
Now, breaking barriers, in a country like India is not easy, let me tell you that, because there are a lot of factors that are involved here. Firstly, it's a large country, large population, diverse faiths, different mindsets that are there. So to break barriers, it's going to take some time. It's a Herculean task, but I believe always baby steps more. Let's not expect something to overnight, the next day morning, everything is fantastic. No, it's going to take time, and we have to work towards it. Starting right. Once again, I say right, starting right from the family to the school. Each individual, has to take it upon them. The onus is on me as a mother. I feel as a teacher, and definitely as a proud citizen of India, I need to be the advocate for change. And this is what I do in all my classes. Whether I'm taking an online course or I'm, conducting my ESOL classes, I am telling everyone, participate, take action. Don't let others, nudge you. Don't point your finger at another person. Let them do it. Let he or she do it, because the change begins within me. And I'm so proud of this country that, we are doing so much. And trust me, the day is not far when we will get, a place that will be called God's own country, not Kerala. The entire country will be God's own country. And I'm sure the younger generation is very quick to adapt, very sensitive. We have a very sensitive younger generation. Unlike my generation, where, we were slightly rigid in our belief, this generation is very sensitive, very open. That's what we do. The mindset is basically because, most of them are working in MNCs, etc. So you tell them, this is wrong. Mom, it's not like that. So we are, so getting in line with them. So the younger generation is teaching us, and the country is in safe hands, I believe.
Also, ma'am, the younger generation is way more exposed than all of us were, right? When we were growing up, and like they rightly call today's world is more of a global village, right? Social media and the Internet of Things is connecting us all, and hence I think children are a little more aware, which is good in a way. Though people might think otherwise, I think awareness in every matter is a boon and a bane. But if you think of it, it can be more of a boon if used, in the right manner. And another thing that I'm resonating with you completely here is that if each of us do our little bit, right, it will not take time. It will not take time to see that change in action. I think what is happening today is we are waiting for that, for that momentum to build, waiting for this whole idea to become a herd philosophy, and then follow it. And I think if we do not do that, and that this is a little old-fashioned approach, right? The whole herd philosophy approach is very, very old-fashioned nowadays. And I think the younger generation has proved it, because that is what they're doing. They're disrupting their, the existing spaces, and that is how, the fantastic startups are growing and becoming icons, because disruption is the name of every game today. And I think, this is the key. And somewhere, if all of us can think of ways to disrupt in a positive manner, disrupt the existing fabric of our society in a very positive manner, I don't think we will ever need to wait and see who is taking the first step, whether that person is succeeding, failing, or whatever it is. And another thing I feel, Mary ma'am, which is very, very vital for any change, is the economic value which is attached to it. Because if it is only, let's say, an emotional, a philanthropic, a social impact kind of a cause which is attached to change, those changes are going to be slow. But if there is an economic depth, let's say many people come forward and start doing for-profit change making enterprises, for example, they launch these kind of enterprises which are giving jobs, which is giving livelihood, which is creating wealth. Imagine the net outcome, right? Imagine the net outcome. So I think somewhere we are getting there, and this is the only gap left. I think it is just that matter of time that the younger generation, or maybe even a few of us, can think of ways. And I refuse to believe that we are old. Neither are you old, and neither am I. And if we could all pause, in our day, in our daily routine, and do these checks once in a while, okay, I'm doing this every day, can I disrupt my space and do it a little more positively, a little more impactfully, find newer ways? I think we will find our answers, and each of us will find these answers. And that is where I feel Traditional wisdom is great. We have a lot of it. We have an amazing history. We have an amazing diverse culture, etc. Now imagine the richness of the foundation that we are already on, and what amazing stuff can come out of it, because which other country has this wealth? Very few.
Absolutely.
Very few, right? So these are all good ingredients, and I think we have it all. It's just a matter of time, and trust me, there are people who are already disrupting the space. If you have followed, the stories here that I've been trying to sort of very painstakingly literally handpick and bring forward for everyone to get inspired by. I think it's amazing. I've been blessed to have come across a lot of people who are doing amazing work. You're one of them. What you have done with Kia, and I'm talking in third person now, if I was not her mother, and I would say this even louder, I think that was disruption. I think that was disruption, because it takes an eye to see talent. And as a mother, I didn't realize that, right? I didn't realize she had the potential to speak and write. I encouraged everything that I could see. And because you're seeing your own child on a day-to-day basis, there's so many things you don't see. And that only, I think, another parent will agree. And that is where I feel every educator can add value by having that third eye, right, which is required to find the right potential in every child. Because a child themselves will not know unless they are they are told by a mentor or somebody who has that maturity of recognizing their abilities, that you're good at this and you can do this, right? That's the cue that a child needs. And I think every child has amazing potential, right? It's just that cue that is missing in their lives.
Totally agree with what you are saying now. As I told you, grade 6, 7, and 8, this is something first time I'm doing. This year, grade 5, and I have children with diverse needs. When the parents start telling me, my child has, I just tell them no. I don't want to know the background, because for me, that's a child, that's there. I'm not going to look at the child with a different eye, because Manisha, something I do not like is, please don't sympathize with me. I want to be treated equally. So grade 5 students, when they come and share their stories, I think I have at times not taught by the lesson plan. Because, if I have, let's say, 20 children, students, and each one has a story to share, I need to give them at least 2 minutes to speak, the period gets over. So, but at the end of the day, I can sleep peacefully because I heard that child. I think I am a disruptor in the field of education because I want children to feel valued.
I have to ask you this. So when you say that you love teaching and, you've been doing it for so many years, I'm sure you've evolved with time, right? Everybody evolves with time. What is your current focus? When I say current focus, I mean, what is your current focus in life, which you're applying to your stream of working when it comes to, teaching as a role? What would that be if you had to spell it out?
My current focus actually is that has always been my dream, that, teachers need to be educated. Teachers need to be upgraded. So I'm working on that particular thing. So I need to upgrade myself to provide, some sort of a training to the other facilitators. Even though, I have a plethora of certificates and international credentials which tell me, but, I'm not satisfied. So my current thing is, my focus is, I need to create a society where everyone is an educator. Everyone makes a difference. My focus is change myself, change each and every educator, whether it's in an offline school, because family, from the home, the child moves to the school, point of education, where they're. If the teachers are evolved, as we at 21K, we call ourselves facilitators. If the facilitators are evolved, we have a very developed society. We have a very progressive society. Teachers have a mindset, I have so many years of experience, done. I don't want to do anything. No. The pandemic has been came bang on our face, right? We were not used to online classes. We were only used to offline, face to face. We learned, we upgraded ourselves. And Manisha, whatever I did, nobody gave me any training. I did hands-on. Whenever I had any doubts about something, I would ask my students. Recently, I am now nominated as the ambassador of India in the International Teachers Association. That's something which is a
Congratulations
blessing.
on that. I just read that
Something
today.
that, yeah, something which is a blessing, because, there are only 40 of us there on that. So if 40 of us make a difference in our respective countries, in our respective workplace, I think the world will be a peaceful. So my focus is there.
You're so right, Mary ma'am. I think, upgrading yourself, like they upgrade apps, they say, right? So I'm using that, the tech word here. I think upgrading yourself, doing a system check that, what is it adequate to fit into the system that you're working for, right? And I think that is a very, very practical check to do for every one of us. I think it doesn't apply just to teachers. I think all of us, we are all working for a living. We're all working to make ourselves better as individuals. And I think somewhere, if you let yourself get outdated, then your value automatically reduces, right, of just existing as an individual. Absolutely. But I have to ask you this, when you were talking, and I got the cue of my next question from there. You were talking about how the pandemic threw us into the online world from the offline world, right? And I think till the pandemic happened, the online world remained so unexplored. It remains so unexplored. So if you've realized, like so many of us have, that though the pandemic era has gone, what it has left behind for all of us as a learning is that how I think strong the world online is, right? And how utilitarian it can be made, how productive it can be made, because obviously here there are no geographical boundaries. I think that is one thing we all sort of echo, right? In your opinion, how do you evaluate the offline and the online world when it comes to teaching? Do you feel the online world is a little better, or the medium is slightly better than the offline world? As a teacher, how do you look at things?
See, major portion of my life I have been a face-to-face teacher, right? But the current workplace, that is 21K, has opened avenues for me. Like, I never thought, honestly, and that's an honest, as a mother, as, a teacher, when I was in an offline class and I would see a child sad, I would realize, because, the facial expressions, I would realize something is amiss there. I notice it here also in 21K. When I see a particular child low, I would ask the child, is everything okay? No need to tell me, just give me the chat box. And I get children sharing with me. So I don't see much of a difference. It's basically how I am going to handle it. I can either ignore everyone, because if I have 22 students on screen, it's not easy for me to cater to all 22, look at everyone's expressions. But Manisha, I do it. The moment I join, and I when they turn on their cameras, and I see that, I can make it out. Maybe that's my motherly instinct. I can make out, something is wrong there today, or someone is over jubilant. So I'll say, what is the cause of happiness? And they'll say, it is my birthday. Okay, happy birthday. Now I all have it. So I am a very noticeable person. I notice things. I notice. So sometimes I also notice this, when I say something and somebody doesn't like it, it's very vivid on their face. Okay, she said something and I don't agree to her. So I just tell the child to share it with me, because we are all. So for me, the pandemic has been a learning experience.
And as an educator, I think you have a lot of responsibility to shoulder, right? In terms of, it's been, we as parents, we have 1, 2, 3 children at the most. But I think the role of an educator, of a teacher, is so much more crucial, because you all are dealing with so many children practically on a daily basis, right? And these are young minds which are soaking everything, right? So it is very important that the teacher is behaving a certain way, looking a certain way, speaking a certain way, and these are all impressionable minds. I still remember my teachers. Can you imagine? I'm like almost touching 50 now, and I'm thinking that these are I think the most valuable years in their lives, and they most of them are going to remember you as an individual. So as the last question, if I may be allowed to ask, what is the message that you want to give your students?
The message before the students, I would actually tell all the educators, whether they are parents or whether they are actually educators, ignite the fire within a child that no one else can extinguish. And let me tell you here, it's not me who's done anything with Kia, because Kia had it. I give all the credit to Kea. Kea had it, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to the third book of Kea. So Kea had it, and I feel every child, Monisha, has the potential. It's just that discover the spark. So I feel, the motivation has to be there from educators, from parents, from vis-a-vis the society. Everyone has to, encourage them.
Absolutely.
So whatever any child has achieved today, everybody wants to take the credit for that. No, the credit is all the child's, because the child did it. Right now at 21K, I'm sure they have impacted, most of them have impacted my life. Whether it's a first class that I've been to, or whether they are my regular students, I learn every day something. I learn, and I have got 4 notebooks filled with things I've learned. Somebody said something. Somebody said, so I just say, let me just write it down. So I have learned, younger generation, you're doing fantastically. Don't let anything demotivate you. You have to be your motivation yourself. Every day, don't get up as a burden. I have to start working. No. Take it as a challenge and work towards it, because this is your time.
And I think they know that they have a larger playing field than any of us, ever had. There was this story when you were talking about, talking the last part about what children should feel and how they should start thinking about themselves. I couldn't help myself, but, from recollecting what my principal used to tell us. And I studied in the same institution. It was a, convent, almost 100-year-old convent now, back in my hometown, and run by, Christian missionaries. So a lot of values, a lot of, faith. I think these are good takeaways. But I remember this one story that our, principal would tell us the first day of every academic year. And I have to, mention this here. Would give us the story, tell us the story about this little train that is chugging up a hill, and the train kept telling itself, that I can climb, yes, I can. And it reaches the top of that hill, and when it comes downhill, it's just, swiftly rolling down, and it says to itself that, yes, I did. And, I never could relate to it as much as I am doing right now in my life. It's almost
Absolutely.
After like 5 decades. And I'm thinking that, maybe that is what life is about, right? When you haven't got to your peak in life, all you have to tell yourself is that, yes, you can, right? Yes, you can. Yes, you will. And keep self-motivating. We look for motivation outside, but I think the largest takeaway from my life has been that, stay self-motivated. That's all. It's just that spark, exactly the same thing that you were telling, a little while ago, that we all have that spark, and that spark is your fuel as well. But it is this spark that's going to take you, I think, on your longest journey in life, and the most successful one, if you allow it to. And maybe that's all we need to keep telling ourselves, because life is not a bed of roses, like you rightly said again. And we will have failures. We will have to get knocked down again and again, because we all expect success, right? And that's what happens when you expect so much of success and positivity from your life. It doesn't come easy. It is not going to come when you want it. But whenever it doesn't come, I think all you have to keep telling yourself is that, yes, you can. Yes, you will. And once you're at the peak and, you're good to roll down again, you have to keep telling yourself, yes, I did. Because appreciating your own hard work and, and acknowledging your efforts as well is important, because again, it's better than expecting it from others.
The book that I've written is Attitude Matters, and where I feel if you're content with what you have, the grass looks green the other side. Okay, they have that. So count your blessings.
Yeah.
Be content with what you have, and have the attitude of gratitude. Please, that's mandatory. So I feel change is inevitable.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the change begins with me. And as Kea said, it's not impossible. I am possible. Definitely.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mary ma'am. I had a lovely afternoon talking to you. And this is going to make a beautiful, beautiful podcast at the end of it. I'm sure, everybody's going to enjoy it. And please keep talking. Please keep motivating. Please stay self-motivated.
Definitely.
You're a beautiful, beautiful person.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to share a story close to my heart. a story of growth, connection, and inspiration. This journey began on July 18, 2022, when I joined 21K School and stepped into online teaching for the first time. 2 days later, on July 20th, I conducted my first class. In that class, a young girl with a bright smile and a hairband greeted me warmly. That girl was Kea Hatkar, my first student at 21K School, and she instantly made me feel at home with her, saying, "Welcome to 21K School, Miss Mary." At that time, I was teaching third language to grade 6, and Kea's enthusiasm was impossible to miss. It all began with a missed portal message about submitting entries to BREE-books, an instant call to my then coordinator, and sharing message with the whole class. Kea's question, "What should I write?" My answer, "Write your story." And she did, dancing on my wheels. As Providence would have it, when I transitioned to teaching second language the following year, there she was again, eager as ever. She wrote her second book, I'm Possible. By grade 8, Kea had truly come into her own, writing her third book, crafting stories, conducting talk shows, podcasts, and TED sessions. Today, she's a Bal Puraskar awardee, recognized by the Honorable President of India and celebrated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. I give full credit to Kea for her persistence and never giving up. She has inspired me with her determination and dedication. We all share ideas, students, but only few take them up as wholeheartedly as Kea did. Kea for me represents the essence of teaching, the privilege of witnessing a student's transformation. There are many trailblazers at 21K School. Each child here is unique and distinct. These names are etched in my heart, and someday I can proudly tell my grandchildren that they were my students. Their achievements remind us of the power of encouragement and perseverance. Let us continue to nurture each and every child of the world, for they make the world brighter.